Sasi, over to you.
I will give some more time, Rupesh, and a very, very good morning, good evening to everyone, and a very, very happy Women's Day to all the ladies, all the panelists, the members, and people who've joined that. We just give it a couple of more seconds to have some more people join in, and then we'll kickstart. I hope that's okay with everyone. I think we'll just begin. And so welcome again, everyone. And, this is in one of the others, one more in the series of APMP webinars. And, APMP has always been a forerunner in actually building diversity and inclusion and promoting promoting opportunities for women. And this year's International Women's Day theme is Breaking the Bias, and it's about working towards building a world free of stereotypes and discrimination, and building an environment which is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Now, whether deliberate or unconscious, bias makes it difficult for women to move ahead. Knowing that bias exists isn't enough, and action is needed to level the playing field. And to break this bias, women continue to experience, we need to understand what it is and how it shows up in our decisions and actions. It's my honor and privilege to have a very distinguished panel with me today from women in the bidding industry across the globe. And with them together, we will discuss how we can all come together and collectively reduce discrimination in all aspects of our lives. So I will give a quick round of introduction to a very brief introduction to all the panelists here. Roshni comes with 20 years of experience in the bids and proposal industry across Middle East, Africa, in India. And she's been an APMP member. And in 2017, she became the first ever person of color with the highest proposal professional accreditation. And she has recently attained her APMP Capture Practitioner certification. She's very actively involved in the APMP International DEI participation. Lisa, do we have Lisa already? Yes. So Lisa is from Chicago. She's the founder and president of ASIL Ventures. She specializes in federal procurement and federal grants in the healthcare and energy sectors, APMP certified. She also works directly with clients to help them develop and manage their business development needs. Welcome, Lisa. We have the next in line is Supriya Rao. She's a pre-sales director at IntelliSwift Software, based out of Pune in India. She brings in a good blend of technical as well as relationship management capabilities, with about 16 plus years of overall IT experience in telecom, retail, healthcare, BFSI, and manufacturing. A proud mother with 2 teenage daughters, she loves to interact with people and understand their point of views. Of course, we have Abhilasha. She is the Senior Vice President and heads the Sales Support Office for FirstSource. She's a co-chairperson for Women Inspiration Network. She's an ex-governing board member at APMP India. She's a passionate marketer and a digital evangelist. In her capacity as the Senior Vice President at FirstSource, she has been instrumental in creating and implementing the digital change agenda in supporting new business deals across the entire spectrum of bid management. So welcome once again, ladies. And I am really looking forward to a very, very engaging and learning a lot from your experiences. So I'll begin with you, Roshni. You know, you've had an extensive career in this space. what are the challenges and common beliefs or ideas that you have faced, right, in terms of, you know, the bias that we do typically see and hear about? Is there any decision in particular that you think has impacted your career the most?
Thank you so much for having me first and foremost. Happy International Women's Day. I think breaking the bias, that's the theme for 2022. With regards to the questions, I think that, looking at the challenges that are faced by women, Middle East, Africa, and India, there's obviously a common trend. I think the challenges that are faced personally, and I think by most women as well, like I said, it's a common trend, is obviously gender imbalances. And I think the other important point to touch base is also on, besides the gender imbalance, there's salary discrepancies. There's obviously no growth in terms of promotions for equal representation at board level, C-level, and middle management. So those are the kind of challenges that I had to face. More specifically, now I'm facing that in the Middle East. And I think that besides those challenges, also important factor is decision making. One of the core challenges I faced was basically not given the opportunity to make decisions. And although the role and specification will say that you have to, you're a line manager role, you have to be given the chance to make those decisions. But when it comes to the ultimate final decision, your decision is never being recognized or even given a chance to be, taken into respect. And I think those are the kind of challenges that I had to face throughout my 20-year industry, or maybe even more, because I've been working now for 28 years. And it's been a very, although it's been a very, consistent in my career, but it's been a challenge because of the fact that you're looking at these disparities and you're trying to say, okay, fine, from an individual's perspective, you lack kind of motivation and you lack the, the gusto to move forward because of these prevailing factors. And I think that, it's more relevant in the industries also that I've worked for, which can also relate to, very male-dominated environments like IT, engineering, construction, and also, there's such a lack of diversity as well. So those are the kind of, kind of experiences that I've had throughout my career journey. And as women, that we always say the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. We are multitaskers. We are obviously the mothers, the daughters, and, we also like the sisters as well. So I think it's important for women representation to be equally diverse at these levels, at higher management levels, especially in leadership roles, because we are the nurturers. We bring in those soft skills and elements to be able to balance the numbers in the company. And I think that it's the added value that we bring to create to the table, because our ideas are differently thought of in different aspects. We bring vision and different dynamics to the board. So I think it's important that we be given that opportunity to be heard and to be given those opportunities to grow, and as well as given the opportunity for equal representation. And right now, the current challenges, and as I would say, it's very significant, because if you're looking at the numbers, right in Africa, the challenges we faced where, it's so traditional for women to still be in the kitchen. And it's taken as a taboo for a woman to grow and to develop themselves. And I think slowly and gradually there is a change. But it's also, you've got to bring in the external factors as well, which is I could refer to as the Postel model, which is your political, economical, social, and technological, and obviously your legal background, where we look at the different dynamics in Africa, where women are, exposed to domestic violence and all of those things. And, it's just basically, like I say, huge disparities in gender, where the man has to go out and work and earn a salary and sustain an income and be providers, where and then women are not given that opportunity to do such. And if they are, it's an issue. So I think there is gradual change. There is coming around those changes, and those are the kind of challenges that I've seen that we have to overcome those challenges and persevere, I guess, and stay strong and resilient in order to push forward. And in terms of, the solution to that, I think it's important to stay resilient. It's important to stay strong and keep your head above water. It's also important to believe in yourself. And I think the key takeaways would be basically is to look at your capabilities, believe in yourself and your inner capabilities, and believe in the fact that you can do this, you can deliver, you can make a difference, and look at the value you bring. I think it's also important to focus on your strengths. And I think the decision that was for looking at my personal situation was obviously building on my strengths and not focusing on my weaknesses, and looking at areas of how I can improve myself to better myself in the workplace, and also not to second guess everything that not to second guess myself, and know that it is tough to compete in global spaces. But at the end of the day, as women, I believe that we are amazing. We can do anything, and we just need the opportunity to be given to do that. And I think that we're such powerhouses, we, like I said, mentioned very early, we're multitaskers, so we can do anything that our hearts and minds that we put forward and do to, and we're very committed in that regard, I would think. I hope, Sashi, that covers enough.
That was, and I could actually, sense the emotion in your voice. And I mean, it just talks about the journey. And I think there challenges are a reality, right? But then, like you rightly said, that we are a resilient lot, right? And we know how to really, really deal with this. And with that, I actually, Supriya, I actually have a question for you. We as women and girls, right, can be very, very effective and powerful leaders and change makers. And of course, the kind of situation that Roshni spoke about, right, there is a need for change. And we are the people who actually can bring about that change, right? Do you really think that, young women today are rewriting narratives and actually changing the space?
Sure. Thank you, Shashi, and thank you for a great start, Roshni. And before I begin, happy Women's Day to each one of us who have joined, and to all the panelists and the participants as well. Yes, so Shashi, to answer your question, that's a very beautiful question, and women are definitely powerful agents of change. And the far-reaching benefits of diversity and gender parity in leadership and decision-making are increasingly recognized in all spheres today. But having said that, I still believe women continue to be vastly underrepresented in decision-making, be it in corporates, politics, businesses, and communities that we live in. Right. So women as leaders and decision makers at all levels are very critical to the advancing the gender injustice or justice and gender equality, and to further improving the economic, social, and political progress for each one of all. Now, when women become leaders, we bring in, a varied set of skills, wild, imaginative perspectives, and most importantly, we bring in a very succinct and poignant structural and cultural difference that drive effective solutions, right? And also, when it comes to creative standpoints, there's a new sense of awareness that follows to unplug the finer details that we women bring to the table. Now, if you see whether ladies are rewriting the narratives today, I would definitely say yes. But if you see and look at the numbers, women CEOs make up just about 6.4% of the Fortune 500 list. But the companies that boast a higher representation of women on their boards notably outperform the organizations that don't. Right. So in the recent decades, there have been calls for greater gender equality while enhancing the need to close the gender gap. And although I do understand tremendous strides and efforts have been made in this aspect, but there is still a fundamental lack of women in leadership roles, right? And organizations and communities like us, communities like APMP, have the responsibility for creating better policies and opportunities at the workplace for women. And not just young women, but one of the world's most admired CEOs, Indra Nooyi, and my personal favorite as well. What I've learned from her is how did she redefine what it meant to be an exceptional leader, right? The first woman of color and immigrant to run a Fortune 50 company and one of the foremost strategic thinkers of our time. How she transformed PepsiCo as an organization with a unique vision, a vigorous pursuit of excellence, and a deep sense of purpose, right? And we all understand, so there are difficulties that come with managing a full-time demanding job and a growing family. And all that it needs is a clear, actionable call for the business and the corporates to prioritize the care and the support ecosystem, the care infrastructure, the support infrastructure, and the policies. It could either be through paid leaves, work flexibility, and a convincing argument of how improving the company and the community's support for young family builders will unleash the corporate and the economy's full potential, right? There have been certain challenges that female leaders face. Of course, I've been fortunate enough to have a supportive family and a very supportive corporate ecosystem, be it the male colleagues or the female colleagues or my contemporaries. But yes, there have been challenges, because in terms of a full-time role coupled with the additional stress of raising your own family, it can be hard sometimes to juggle work alongside personal life. And if the pandemic has taught us anything, it has only taught us to create a very healthy work-life balance, right? But the sad nature for this is for a lot of women, the sad part could be, the expectations can often be set lower, or women can be often perceived as more emotional and less decisive than men. But I do believe women bring in more diverse physical, mental, and emotional conversations and experiences to everyday life, right? So yes, the answer to your question, young women today are rewriting narratives on gender equality. We should look up to them. We should promote feminism, equality in pay for both genders, and we are the ones who should never shy away from hailing and supporting our female colleagues and contemporaries. We should be someone worth emulating and idolizing in real life, right? So we should be building a care, a support infrastructure, and an ecosystem, and hailing all our female colleagues and continuing to build this community as we live with them.
Thank you so much, Supriya. I think that was fabulous. And I think as we're talking about first and foremost our own empowerment, belief in ourselves. And I think that's something, Roshni also spoke about. Absolutely. And then, of course, there is a need for us, a support ecosystem, right? Accepting the reality of the system that we do live in. Right. And that brings me to my next question. And Abhilasha, what do you think, is the role of men in gender inclusion and equality? Of course, very easy to say a men versus woman, but is it so simple? So I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Fantastic. So good evening, everyone, and wish everyone a very happy International Women's Day. I hope comes a day where we don't really have to celebrate this day as is, and we kind of celebrate women and men every single day with respect, pride, and that's what I wish for. It's a very interesting question, Shashi. Imagine a world where men were replaced by women. And just think of it, would we still be happy? I don't think so. I think when we look at women and we say, okay, empower them, I have a slightly different thought. Have you ever thought, is there an aspiration deficit in women? Why are there so less women in the leadership position? It's not because they're not talented or they're dysfunctional or they're deficient in any ways. I think the environment, the ecosystem, the pressure from the society, the way that we've been brought up, all those stereotypes together, bundled up with the workload and then saying that, okay, it's a male-dominated system, we've kind of created all of these biases around ourselves, right? But if you look at it, the way we are brought up, even the men, they're surrounded by women at all the times, right? So when you're a child, you're at home, you have family members, you respect them, you have your mother, sister, wife, daughter, all of those good things, right? And then when you go to school, you have male and female colleagues or students, right? So you don't really differentiate so much there. So literally, men are surrounded by women all the time and women are surrounded by men all the time. But then what really changes suddenly when it comes to work? I think it's that stage of our life, right? Where we're getting married, we have work responsibilities, and suddenly the men at work take dominance, women take a step back. So I don't think so it's the talent or they're dysfunctional or deficient in any ways, but it's just that they kind of choose a different role. But now, if you change the ecosystem and you bring in an ecosystem where there's no differentiation, then what does really it mean, right? It comes down to the fact that, okay, now why do you men not want to see women in those positions? Is it a lack of trust? Do you think they can't take those decisions, or it's a simple sense of insecurity, right? In my view, leaderships is just the same, right? Whether it's a men leader or it's a women leader, it's just about the same. It's just the work culture, the power networks that you create that needs to be dealt with differently, right? So this is only possible that, when you have equality, when you don't differentiate between colors, when you don't differentiate between gender, when you don't differentiate between ethnicities. And that's where we want both men and women to play a big role, right? Today, every single organization is cautious of the fact that they have to have a diverse workforce. So they have their D&I policies. They have said, okay, we have this policy, we got to follow it. This is how it needs to be implemented. But is that really helping change the culture of the company? Is that really helping change the hearts and the minds and the spirit of the workplace, right? Are men understanding what does it really mean to bring in that change? Now, there are so many beautiful stories that are coming up today where men really recognize and respect the fact that a diverse organization and a diverse culture can make a huge difference. And they are adapting to different roles themselves. So I think the role that the men can play in today's world, considering that we all believe that, it's male dominated and opportunities are going more to the men, is try and make it an equal platform. Even at home, if men start to contribute, they will free up so much more time with the women to take up better responsibilities, right? So it's about striking that balance. It's about us giving equal opportunities to everyone. I don't believe that, an organization or a world led only by women is going to be the best place. It has to be a mix. And how do you bring in that mix? It's about change of hearts. It's about change of minds. It's about how we think and cautiously not drive bias with our folks. So I think men do play at this point in time, do play a big role. Okay, something as simple as this. If you're going to recruit people, the first step of recruitment is to look at the profiles that have come in, right? Do you even ask if we have 50% women and 50% men profile? Because if I don't start with that to begin with, I'll never end up hiring a woman. So I think it's a cautious choice that they have to take and then bring in the kind of inclusion there. And it's not only about men and women, it's about, diversity in many, many ways.
Yeah. So very interesting, Vilasha. And again, I think a sneak peek into the reality. So you're very right that we do have, I think today all corporates have diversity policies. And I think, in terms of, it's all about walking the talk. And I think bringing that diversity in spirit, I think that's where perhaps all of us, believe there's more work that needs to be done. And I love the word, while it may be sounding very simple, but it's very heavily loaded, men understanding women. And I think that's a big space to really, conquer. And if
I'll just share a small story with you, Shashi. 2009, when I got into the bid management world, right? It was a coincidence. I was in operations. I used to present to the prospective clients. They used to like it. Then they said, why don't you do it for a living, right? So I was kind of pushed into the role and I said, okay, let's just take it on. I was the only woman then, right? We were 8 men and 1 women team. And I was the only woman, and everybody would like, oh, would you be really able to do it? But came a time, 5 years down the line, we were 50-50.
Interesting.
Right. So, and today when I'm looking at it and the recruiters come to me and say, okay, why don't you look at all of these profiles? My first question is, how many women have you gotten for me to look at?
Interesting. Yeah.
And the challenge is, they say, ma'am, there aren't many who are applying for it. And I'm saying, we really need to work through those dynamics, right? They're equally intelligent. They equally want to grow. And we need to kind of create the right infrastructure, right support system for them to come in.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it really helps when these guys go through a counseling session as a family to understand what does it really take to drive that balance. Because it's not only about the organizations giving them a work opportunity. It's about the culture, it's about the environment and the support system that get created at home.
Agree. And I think that's extremely important. I think because I think in the beginning when we were talking about it, one of the biggest change maker or transition or turning points in our lives is that transition, that we do make into married life, and then again, with kids and parents getting older. And I think it's assumed, it's expected that the woman will take a back step. And I think that's where perhaps, it is important to really create that infrastructure within and the change in the culture within our families and that ecosystem to be able to really support that change so that, that can be balanced out.
I would say, if you withdraw all the support that you give to the men today and make them work 18 hours, it's going to be a chaotic world.
Absolutely. That's an interesting perspective. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, moving on, Lisa, when you're actually an entrepreneur, and, we've been talking so far about, what we see in jobs, as per you, what do you think you had to do differently to develop yourself and advance in your career?
I want to say hi to everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this panel, and happy International Women's Day. Sorry about my voice. It's a little early here for me, but it's fine. So for me, it was a very weird experience, a weird journey into this industry. I fell into it too. I had a consulting job, and we worked with small businesses, and they often needed help with their bids. And I, read about it, and I'm like, well, I can do it. So I started mostly as a freelancer after I left my job. But the most difficult thing for me on a personal level is I'm very introverted. So I am behind the scenes, I deal with anxiety. I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. Like, I left that for people who were more outgoing and who could talk and network. I just like to, research and write. And so I unintentionally kind of structured my business model that works for my personality. And what I mean by that is, prior to COVID, I had always worked remotely. I go on site when I have to, but I was just not productive if I had to work in an office. So I would go on site if I had to, but I usually just work remotely, and I still do. And I do occasional site visits. I set up it as a business, so separate email, a PO box, as a woman, just to make sure that my home address was not floating out there on Upwork or any type of freelance website. And then I had to work on developing my skills. As I got more into the RFP process, I kept hearing about this APMP, looked into it, got certified. I attended all the webinars. After a webinar, I connected with people on LinkedIn. If they were willing, just had a chat, like, what do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it? Just try to get as much information as possible. Initially, when I started 10 years ago, I was a generalist. I did whatever work that came my way, whether it was writing or editing or managing. It didn't really make a difference. I also worked in different industries, whether it was construction or janitorial services or IT. But here in America, under the last administration, we had 2 government shutdowns. And that really affected my clients. So I couldn't keep working in construction or on-site services. So also during that time, I was working on federal and state and local and private grants. Over time, I realized I like federal. It's just I'm more comfortable with it. And that's why I decided to focus on it. But in the last couple of years, the big thing that I had to develop and, to develop myself in my career is have a community. I'm a first generation entrepreneur. My parents, I'm also a child of immigrants. So my parents are still waiting for me to get the corporate job and be secure. I don't know anything about running a business. And so I did different cohorts. I've developed a nice community within Chicago of all our small business owners, including men and women, often in different industries, just to what are the laws that I have to be concerned about? How do you hire or fire people? Any software recommendations? Just so that we can talk. And there's self-care, what are you doing? How do you deal with a difficult client? What do you, and stuff like that. And so I think for me, I had to get out of my comfort zone, but not to the point where I felt overwhelmed. I had to learn how to speak up and out, and definitely set boundaries and figure out how do I best navigate this and keep work coming.
Very, very interesting. And I think, it's absolutely, I think I can just keep on listening to the lovely, things that, all of you and your experiences that you've had. I think as we close this round one, I think what we are hearing are some common themes that are emerging. We all recognize that there are challenges. The world isn't really equal as yet, right? But as Abhilasha said, we aren't looking for an all women corporates, nor are we looking at all women at home. We require a diverse, and we require a mix, right? And one of the things that I think all of you have been continuously talking about is, belief in yourself, continuing to actually extend your boundaries and stretch your boundaries, continuing to learn and explore. Whether it was you, Lisa, moving out of your comfort zone, whether it was Roshni, whether it was Abhilasha, just being the only woman in a group of 8, right? And then, so we are actually the change makers, and change really will begin with us, right? And with that, actually, I move on to, the round 2 of the session where we are focusing more on our industry. And here, Roshni, I'll actually move to you. We're talking about gendered norms and ideas of what a woman's role should be in society. And that often gets translated into the professional space. And you've already spoken about that, especially in certain, segments and sectors, right? When you have been working about all of these 3 sectors and across the 3, continents, right? How did you actually really deal with some of these, patterns that you did see happening? And, because you've had a long career. So how did you really deal with this?
Thanks, Sashi. I think just if I can just give you, touch base in terms of letting the messaging continue from question 1. In terms, like I said, I'm going to focus it on very country specific, like in Africa, like I've made mention, there's a stigma, in terms of women, especially women of color that want to progress in organizations where you're always taking the back seat and expected to be the mom with the apron at home. And you need to be obviously domesticated and be the kind of, the wife, the partner, or basically just the woman staying at home, and career progression is out of the question. I think we've definitely evolved as, from a nation perspective, where, it's breaking that barriers to make sure that, women are being seen now as being progressive, and it's slowly you see that there's been advancements where there is now diversity, equality, inclusion across the board. Women are given positions, of equality and equal representation in terms of roles and responsibilities, and also in terms of decision making. I want to also make it very clear that, as women, we can make well-informed decisions. We have the power and the tenacity and obviously the skill in order to make effective decision makings in organizations. And it's important that we're given those opportunities and those platforms to be able to make those decisions and to be respected for that. And also I want to just say that, in the Middle East, it is by far for me not as as rapidly changing. Right now, we're looking at one out of 5 equal representation across all companies for women diversity. We're also looking at basically. Like I said, in terms of leadership and management role, it is extremely clear that there is a distinctive pattern where men do hold seniority levels in terms of roles. Research have proven there's 71% of men in head of bids in management roles. And there is such a huge discrepancy with that. And I do believe that there has to be more focus and drive to make sure that women are given those opportunities in those roles. And then also from I could say India, the change is also very gradual. I think that there's been great development in gender equality, especially now with the APMP India, looking that there's so much of, effort to drive women in leadership roles. And also I think obviously with the introduction of APMP, they're so focused on driving diversity, equality, inclusion, and making sure there's equal representation of women in leadership. So we're definitely making headway. And obviously with the APMP business proposals, the profession is also respected. I mean, mean, looking at my career when I started 20 years ago, and I'm actually going to refer back to an article I've written in the press, where basically women in business proposal were looked at as secretarial. And, you know, we were basically the admin staff in the background. We were dotting the I's and crossing the T's and basically, you know, just not respected for the role and responsibility. And we've never been given any opportunity to grow thereafter. I think thank God to the APMP, because now the profession is respected worldwide. People are given the platform to, you know, develop themselves in this field in different levels of accreditation. And I think that it's important that we have this. And also believe that, you know, for me, my challenge was basically trying to persevere, like I made mention. We need more equal, like we say, representation at these different levels in the company. For me, like I say, the only advice I could give to everybody and everyone is to basically stay strong. It's not been easy. It's been a very long road. There's been lots of bumps along the way. And as women, we keep on pushing forward. We keep pushing it forward, and also we keep paying it forward. So that means, because I'm a single mom for 24 years. I have a daughter. And, you know, I think that me instilling those qualities in her to be respected and to make sure that she feels that she's welcome in our organization. You know, I don't want it to be where we as women always feel that we have to continuously fight. There shouldn't be a fight. And as, you know, like I said, we're not here as women to say that, you know, that we basically can't do it without men. I think it's important to have equal representation. An organization should have both 50-50 male and female split. I think it's an opportunity for having blended ideas and creating dynamics and synergies between women and men. That's how we create innovation, and creativity comes across the organization to win deals. And I think that we have so much value to bring. And I think going forward, we must just push forward, like I say, just keep our head above water and try to do the best we can. Don't give up, because it's important to keep rising. And as women, we keep on evolving. And just like how bids and proposal, the industry is evolving in terms of best practice and technology, and everything is evolving around the globe. We need to keep moving, and we need to keep growing to make sure that, yes, we are here to add value. We are here to make a meaningful contribution to the organization and to be respected for that. I think that it's important. And I think the only thing I could say is that, in conclusion, is that, you know, being a woman is such a dynamic. I wouldn't be anything else. I'm grateful that I'm a woman, because we have such a, you know, qualities to offer the world. And I think that, like I say, it's a balance of those soft skills balancing with the hard skills in the organization, because you need to have a bladder board. You've got to humanize leadership, and you've got to be able to offer that kind of blend and I could say diversity in the organization. Thanks, Sashi.
Very, very interesting perspectives. And so Roshni, I think, meaning I actually what stuck with me was the word fight. Women shouldn't have to fight. While we keep talking, and we will continue to fight, we are resilient. But I think just the mention that we got to fight, I think it talks volumes, you know, of the stress that we really are taking, and it isn't really normal. We are fighting to make our place, right? And with that, Supriya, I actually will turn to you towards another big reality of our job is basically this job, right, is of course demanding. While we are talking about flexible working, because many of us women, I think to really balance the kind of responsibilities we have at home and at work, right, we will require flexibility. And in this particular role, right, flexible working really turns out to be really relatively inflexible in practice. And, you know, all of us know what we're talking about. And because of which, I think at some point in time, right, most of the women tend to give up and they actually seek opportunities elsewhere, right? Would you have any suggestions for women, you know, like us in this profession who may be younger with responsibilities, of really how to really strike a work-life balance while doing what they love most? Any best practices that you think you can share?
Yeah. Thanks, Shashi, for this beautiful question. So I think workers of every gender, be it men or women, but especially women and especially parents and caregivers, who are parents to younger kids and have elderly aging parents at home. They have a hard time juggling work and home responsibilities, and the pandemic has only added more to the strain, right? But what I truly believe is, and some of the tips that I follow personally on a personal front for me, which has worked well, which I'll share now with the rest of the audience as well. So one is ask for help, right? It's very natural in this bid and proposal management job role and the function that we are in, that it's very natural to feel overwhelmed, stressed, or even stuck sometimes, right? But what I believe is it's totally okay to ask help, reach out to your teammates, see if they can assist, ask your family to help, help you out with the household chores, and maybe talk to a friend, talk to a fellow colleague, talk to the leadership, or talk to the contemporaries, female, male colleagues that you have, and ask for help if it's getting too overwhelming, right? Then the second tip I personally maintain is establish boundaries when it comes to work, right? Establish boundaries specifically because if you're not taking on the extra burdens, if you've been asked to burn the midnight oil, because if there's a deadline, if there's there's a thing that needs to be submitted, if there's a solicited, unsolicited proposal you've been asked to work on. So, just establish boundaries around you so that you're not taking on extra burdens. Third is, I do believe in engaging in self-care, prioritizing the me time, and trying to do something away from work that absolutely I find joy and love in. It could be anything, even spending time with your family, mindlessly scrolling your Instagram feeds, listening to your favorite song on Spotify. It could be anything. But then it's equally important to give you that personalized me time. And then I think for us ladies, right, we are naturally very expressive. So it's important to assert your attitude and acknowledge and assert your feelings, be it positive, negative, and neutral. They are all valid and they need to be expressed. And specifically in our profession, otherwise also, I do feel perfection does not exist, right? And it's okay sometimes if you feel you are not as productive as you think you should have been. You should be absolutely doing fine and best with the kind of resources you have been provided with. So just a tip to all the ladies, that practice self-compassion, right? So it's okay to make mistakes. We are all human, and making mistakes is absolutely okay. The other thing that we spoke about, and even I bought out in my point earlier, that the support ecosystem, the care infrastructure, and the ecosystem is equally very important for all of us, right? So I think involving your family and apprising them of your job roles and responsibilities and the function that you are in, making them understand of what you do and why you do, and how do you find your purpose and meaning of what you do. So I specifically involve my teenage daughters, my kids. I ask them to create a structured but a flexible schedule, and I ask my children to make choices for me. I take some time off to spend time with them. It would be as easy as playing Pictionary or a jigsaw puzzle or something of that sort. Staying connected with the network, with the industry, is also equally important. So I am also a part of the APMP Foundation. We have a great network on WhatsApp and Telegram. So we exchange ideas with like-minded people. So staying connected and investing your energy in what you want and what gives you joy, and what actually makes you chase your dream and ambition is also equally important. So these are some of the tips that I take care of in order to strike a healthy work-life balance, as in asking for help, asserting your feelings and attitude and expectations, practicing self-compassion, understanding the perfect world of perfectionism doesn't exist, setting boundaries, spending time with your family, or maybe carving out a do not disturb time, or getting into a home mode or a work mode, setting up time zones where you actually need to get your head down and get your hands dirty in work, maybe a 1 hour or a 2 hour window. You can actually talk to your family, friends. You can have your family involved in your work life as well, in terms of chalking out a schedule, or making them understand of what you do, why you do, and what's the purpose of what you do is why you do, right? So understanding and creating that workspace, keeping your tech separate from your your home life, all that has really helped me. I hope it'll help the others as well. But again, going back to even what Roshni said or Abhilasha said, right? I was also one of the only woman in my team when I started my journey in the bid and proposal management field. I come from a tech background. I have been technical throughout my career span. And I was also asked to play this role. It was not out of choice, but I was made to play this role. And I, being an opportunist, I grabbed it with both my hands and I started playing this role. So I thought I'll figure it out along the way. Let's get into this, right? And I've also been a single mom for the last 6 years. Again, that was also not of choice. That was by force. But yeah, so what I've always learned is rise above, shine, and get going, and do not let others make any choices for you. You are your own self, and be yourself. And yeah, we all make mistakes in life, but don't be ever harsh on yourself. But at the same time, equally, don't let anyone dictate your life or tell you what you can do or you can't do, or don't let anyone tell you you can't have everything in life, right? So I've always learned to never live on anyone else's benchmarks and never let anyone define you or take charge of you. So we all have our setbacks, we all have our failures, but that's the only way we can truly enjoy and taste success. So that's been my mantra throughout.
Lovely. And I guess inspiration galore. I think lots of notes are ready to take back. And I think the one big key element is perfection is not what we should be seeking. Accepting the reality of the job that we're in, and it's the resources at our disposal, and really practicing self-compassion,
right? And making the most of whatever you have, right? Be it the opportunities or be it the resources. Just take it, get started with it, and you will learn along the way. So you can't just figure out having everything chalked out in your head and then you will get started. That'll never be the case.
Sure.
You jump into the pool, you will ultimately figure out how to swim.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. Wonderful. So Lisa, I guess while we again talk about, the challenges in our job, you're still talking about familiar territory. You have, benchmarks, while Supriya said, not living up to anyone else's benchmarks, but then, being an entrepreneur and a woman, right, trying to navigate, and of course, a person who is introverted by nature, right? Navigating this space must have been humongous, right? And how do you think, we could encourage, more women to pursue entrepreneurship as a career?
So for me, the most difficult thing had to be pricing. Trying to figure out how to price for my services, convincing my clients of value added. Often, just like Roshi said, I had a one prospective client, male counterpart consultant. He's a marketer, business development leader, and I was regulated to, administrative assistant. And he wanted my pay to reflect that. He actually wanted me to shut down my business, come work for him full time, while the male consultants were getting their hourly rate. So the biggest sticking point for me, it was, how do I charge? I have a small team. I have to pay them as well. So for me, it was, my network. I knew some executive directors. I knew some people in leadership, not that I work for directly. And I said, well, how much do you maybe pay your copy editor? Or how much do you pay this project manager as a consultant? I asked a lot of questions. And that's how I kind of priced it out. I had a really great mentor who was transparent with pricing. And so I was able to then change my pricing as well. As far as how do we encourage women, I think we may even have to change kind of the idea of entrepreneurship. I'm still struggling with this because I feel like if I say I'm a freelancer or independent consultant, it kind of goes to administrative assistant. But if I say I'm a small business owner, it goes to like, oh, well, then we can pay you what you deserve because you have a team, or, it's something bigger, but bigger may not always be the best for you. I think the one thing, the model that I've had to really stick by is, no is a complete sentence. And I don't have to justify why I don't want to do something, why it's not a fit for me. That is my boundary. And that is a kind of a freedom to also quit clients who are not paying, who don't want to pay you more, who don't want to understand the value that you add. And so then you have to find your community. For me, I don't think that I would have gotten this far if I hadn't had my unofficial mentors, if I hadn't had other women that I partner or team with. I work with a lot of other independent consultants, small business owners, when I need graphic design or editing, if I can't do it all myself. So if I didn't have that, I don't think I would have survived this long. And I think the one thing that we have to do is we're talking about women and supporting is don't burn bridges. Be true to your word. So if you work with an independent contractor, you work with a small business owner, pay them, define a scope of work, let them know what you expect. If there's a problem with payment from client, or if the client is not feeling, be honest and open and transparent, because again, without my network to fall back on, I would not have gotten this far or survived this long.
Absolutely. I think so real. And I sometimes, I think what we've been sharing is like a checkbook, checklist of, do's and don'ts of, our professional life and how do we really navigate. Thank you all so very much. And Abhilasha, that brings me to my next question. And so when you're talking about our space, we're talking winnability, right? And we're talking competition and, and which of course is about our ability to be able to really respond to real-time customer needs, right? What according to you, right, is the unique value proposition that we as women bring to this space?
Okay, so I'll again go back to the fact that, when we are born with certain traits. As a child, we acquire some more, and then we go to college, we acquire some more. Some are through our experiences, some are like, you go through situations. Again, it's experiences. So, personal experiences, your job experiences, all of that is what makes you what you are today, right? Good, bad, ugly, that's where it gets to. So if given equal opportunities and similar situations, I think both men and women would have similar traits. And to some extent they do, right? But if you ask me exclusively what women bring along, because they have these additional responsibility of a caregiver, a mother, a wife at home, right? So there is a different kind of a trait that a woman, by the virtue of all these experiences, gains. And that's a trait of being inclusive, right? A woman generally would not differentiate between a man or a boy child and a girl child. So they are very, very inclusive, right? When it comes to transparency, we've never seen our moms to be hiding things. They're very transparent, right? They're very empathetic. You do good, you do bad, you do ugly in school, everything's acceptable. And then there is a way forward, right? The relationship's always a trust-based relationship. And it's a balanced decision making. I've never seen a mother go to a mall picking up stuff only for herself. There'll be all the other family members that you think of individually and say, okay, I need this for him, I need that for him. So they can actually put themselves in the customer's shoes or their family members' shoes. So that's something which is a very, very unique trait, which men, honestly, if you ask them, they a lot of times struggle to do that. Right. And then if you think of innovative thinking, I think women are slightly differently wired, whatever you may say. Genetically, otherwise, there are some of those wires that make them very innovative, thinking very, very differently and coming up with some of these fantastic ideas on the spur, right? And I believe that women are at par when it comes to productivity and all the other good traits. So if you look at it, if you get a woman to win your deals, you're getting all of these things as a bonus, right? So maybe it's time to put men through some of these experiences in their life where they have to bring up children, they have to go shopping and do all these different things, then they probably will be at par.
Love that, Abhilasha. And I love I think many a times I think talking victims, perhaps not the way to go, right? I think it's just taking pride in all that we do and, seeing how all of those, and I think you put it so beautifully, Abhilasha, that some of the things that we got to do on a day-to-day basis, right? Those are our very own strengths. And that's something we don't really need to really keep it isolated in a home and be shy about it. That's something we really bring to our teams, and especially when we talk about our space, a big part of we talk about know your client. What's that all about? Fulfilling their needs. It's emotional congruence. And who better than women to do that? Right? And absolutely. So I think meaning lovely, lovely, and I think reaffirmation and a validation of what we've always kind of believed, but learning from each other is a very, very different experience. I think we are actually just mindful of the time. We're just moving on to the next round. And here I will just, for the last words, I will just have each of you really go through and actually talk about, one advice that you think you would want to give to women aspiring to grow in this particular role. So shall we begin with you, Abhilasha, since I see you on screen?
Be bold and break the biases. Nothing can stop you. It's all in the mind.
Lisa?
I would say it's okay to be a little afraid. If you're going to, strike out solo and be an entrepreneur, there are going to be scary times because of the uncertainty, but push through, develop a community and be confident in yourself and your abilities, and you'll have a lot of fun in this industry.
Interesting. Roshni?
Thanks, Ashley. I think the takeaway advice for everyone is to understand that, yes, you're going to have challenges, and yes, you're going to have your bad days, but with those bad days also comes good days. And like I mentioned before, it's a blend of having the soft skills and the hard skills, and who better to do it than women, because women are very good in terms of business development and sales, and obviously increasing win ratios. We can basically do it all, be multitaskers at the end of the day. And I think that it's important to take away the advice is to be strong, keep rising and shining, believe in yourself, you are worth it. And also to know that you can do anything your heart desires. Never, ever, ever let anybody or anyone bring you down. It's important that women support women. I must emphasize on that strong enough, because as women support women, we have to be united to support each other. If someone's progressing, if someone achieves an accolade or something that someone has done, motivate them, congratulate them, because that's how we grow. We stand together and we uplift each other, and that's how we can grow basically and be united as a strong team. And I think also last but not least is that as women, we experience so much of challenges in daily life, and it's important that men see, even it's not about, like I say, basically like saying that men are, evil, or men are, bashing men or anything of that kind of set. It's basically to say that give us the visibility and the platform. We are here to help you. We're here to grow. We share the same consensus that you do. We share the same ideas and thoughts that you do. I think that it's important that we have the validation and be given those opportunities to be given those opportunities to show what we can do and showcase our talents and skills. And I think that's about it. I think that everyone must just break the bias and pushing forward. That's my advice, I could say. Thanks, Sashi.
Sure. Supriya?
Yeah, my piece of advice is know your job well, keep getting better at it, aim higher, be fierce, be fearless, be completely flawed. As I'm mentioning it again, perfection doesn't exist. Discover your passion and what makes you come alive. Always believe in yourself. And last but not the least, always be kind, compassionate, and be human.
Lovely, lovely. I guess, I think that I really don't need to say anything at all. I think be compassionate and be human. And I think, and be women, if I can just add to that little one. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for the lovely time that you've spent. And I'm personally taking away a lot from this session. And I think important to really continue to build this network of lovely women. We have a lot of strength. We can learn from each other. And let's continue to keep doing that. A happy Women's Day to all of you once again. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.